There was also a case right after the election of a trans identifying person attacking their elderly father in their home. I mean,
Yeah,
there are
I think that's the one I was thinking of. I think
but I
it
don't even know if
was.
the father voted for Trump. Maybe they did. Like, that's even worse.
Yeah, I think it might have been. It was I don't know if it was a man pretending to be a woman or a woman pretending to be a man. I don't remember, but they did kill their dad. And I thought it was for voting for Trump, but it may have just been for not approving of their dysphoria,
or
right?
nothing. Like, that's the thing.
Or
Some
nothing.
people are just horrible and do bad
I
things.
know. And it's crazy because to see things from such a different perspective, because at that time, I guess the dad in this case was, I don't want to say like super elderly, but he was probably like around 70, I think.
Yeah,
and
the attacker was in their late 30s or 40s. So the dad was like, 30 years older at least.
Yeah. And so then I was telling this story to my mom, and I'm like horrified by it. And then mom, so it's like, oh, so then this guy who's pretending to be a girl, this transgender person, then he kills his dad that was living with him because his dad was disabled or something. And then mom's like, he put him out of his misery. And it's so funny how she had such a different perspective, because I was like, oh man, what a nightmare. And mom's like, man, that poor dad must have been miserable having that as a child. So he put him out of his misery.
Oh my gosh. See, but that is the thing. I think some parents like bend over backwards to be supportive, and it just doesn't matter.
Know.
Yes, I guess technically those are both, like the Pennsylvania case and the one we're talking about are both examples of like mental health issues, but
for sure.
I don't
know.
That
reminds me of this detransitioner that I follow on TikTok, and I saw his journey for a while, because I saw him on TikTok when he was still identifying as a woman, like, I don't know, a year and a half ago, but he was more based than others, right? So he was still pretty like conservative in most values. Well, then, he found Jesus. He's completely like detransitioned now, and it's been a wonderful story. But what he says is talking about how his parents, just because he didn't grow up in the faith at all, and his parents instantly supported his gender dysphoria, instantly supported his him transitioning. And one thing that he said, and he loved his parents, and so he wasn't trying to be harsh with them, but he was saying that he wished that they would have offered some pushback about his transition, because he had to go through everything that he did with the estrogen and trying to be a woman, and it just messed him up in the head. And he's like, hey, I wish my parents were actually being parents in this situation and saying, no, you're a boy.
I think it's weird that we can live in a society that promotes like body positivity and acceptance, except in this one case. Like,
I know.
If you're overweight, that's okay. Like, you're just whatever, bigger boned, and like you're beautiful no matter what. But if you believe you're born in the wrong body, then we have to be like, instead of being like, no, accept yourself physically the way you are, which is what you say when someone's obese, you say that makes sense. You should alter yourself or take chemicals or essentially silo yourself socially. And I don't think that that's compassionate, because there are I'm going to generalize here, but I feel like there are kind of two types of parents we see. A set of parents that are like, we're afraid of what's happening. We've been told this is like potentially going to be something that causes our child deep emotional stress, and the best way forward is to go along with it. But then you have some parents who are like, they almost treat it as their form of social currency. Like, wow, we have a special kid. And instead of it being like, oh, my kid's a savant at piano, they're like, my kid has been so aware that there's multiple genders since they were 2, and before this was even a concept developmentally for them, which I find weird. It's like reading your own desire to be unique, quote unquote, into your child.
And that's when it's straight up child abuse. It's one thing to where the parents who are genuinely scared and being manipulated by doctors, but it's another when you see like I Am Jazz, when you see Jazz Jennings, parents who, especially the mom, seem to be the biggest factor here, who push this on their son at such a young age. That's just straight up child abuse. There's no other way around it. Nobody manipulated him to doing, or her to doing all that to her son, right?
Yeah. And would it have been like this if you didn't get a reality TV show and make money? Like
exactly. She got like
about child influencers, and that's on like social media, on Instagram, things like that. But child influencers started with things like TLC, right?
Yeah, and I'm curious at how that even truly behind the scenes began with Jazz Jennings, because you have Jazz's mom, I forgot her name, but she's like at like 3 years old is when Jazz had his first interview with Barbara Walters. So how did that even look like? Was there any sort of connection to begin with? Was this manufactured, or was it just like, oh, the mom trying to get some virtue points, or being like, ooh, I want to have a child star. I want my child to be a star. Let me call Barbara Walters. Let me call the media and see if I can get some interviews for this. I'm just curious how that all unfolded. But at the end of the day, what that mother did was essentially, in a way, similar to prostitution, prostitute their child, even though Jazz wasn't really doing like actual prostitution, but she pimped him out, ruined his body, mutilated him, turned him into a science Frankenstein experiment, castrated him when he was a minor, and ruined his life and shortened his lifespan, because these hormones and these surgeries will shorten their lifespan. Hopefully he doesn't end up, committing suicide, but at the very least, it will shorten his lifespan because he's not having his natural levels of hormones in his body. And this is what his mom did for fame, for money, and it's just despicable.
And I think about, again, I'm going to draw the comparison to the conversation that people are having about child influencers whose family vlog on YouTube, or they have TikTok or whatever, and they're making money that way. I think it's totally legitimate to be saying, like, how do we protect these children? A lot of states are considering, like, should they be considered with the same protocols and guardrails that child actors have, which only exist in a couple states. But in Jazz's case, it's almost more manipulative to me. Like, if you have a young child whose parents are influencers, and then they, they're born and they have the birth vlog, and they have the YouTube or the Instagram, the TikTok, and they are themselves responsible for brand deals and stuff like that. Like, people say, like, you're making your child work from an early age. Exactly. How does this impact them? What are the long-term ramifications of being famous or overexposed like this when you're a young child? Like, the thing is always like, what about meltdowns? What if they want a day off? Whatever. With Jazz Jennings, it became, well, you are now the voice and spokesperson for this movement, quote unquote. And I just can't imagine putting that child, because if Jazz was like, hey, I don't want to do this, or like, when I was 3, I did want to wear high heels because I have older siblings, but I actually don't think it's a gender thing. They would have lost their TV show. There would have been backlash from all the people who promoted this person. And also just that sense of identity, like, from a young age, this is what you are here for, to promote this lifestyle. It gives you no way out, which seems just like, I just can't imagine that. Like, there's a reason why I think you should keep childhood sacred and precious and away from these influences, not just because I don't believe in what they're promoting, but also because children deserve the protection of privacy.
I agree with that. And I think that Jazz is in such a tough situation, and we need to keep praying for him, because he is stuck in a position now because he loves his family, and he knows that if he says, wait, this was a mistake, I want to live my life as the male that I am, right? Then that's just going to expose the fact that his parents were abusive to him and doing all of that. And so now he's in a position to where he has to live this lie, and he has to continue to live this lie to protect his own family, and putting that kind of weight on somebody's shoulders who didn't decide that for themselves. You just put that responsibility on them since 3 years old. It's devastating. Yeah.
I don't like it at all, Melonie. What can I say?
No.